right, Ellis and I'm back. Another dish. How we doing out there? Good, great, grand, wonderful. So we're gonna be continuing with, I'm just gonna keep on telling you about things I think you should bounce out to the theater and see. Now I am, admittedly, very late to the party on this one because, in Toledo, turns out we don't have such a good film culture. I'll give you an example. As if you listen to this show, you know Tom Hardy is my muse, right? So one of his most recent films, The Bike Riders, a Jeff Nichols film. I love Jeff Nichols as a filmmaker. Was released in, I think, the New York and L.A. circuit over the summer, this past summer, so 2023 summer. We still haven't got it yet, and the rights just got sold to it, and we're not going to see it until, I believe, this coming summer. So I have to wait a year and some change to see, stuff that, people that are in those particular circles have already seen. And this one was no exception. We waited, and it only premiered at a theater. There's 3 theaters in my area, and it only premiered at probably the lowliest of the 3, and the show times were shit. Like, it's a 2-hour and 21-minute movie. Not that bothers me. That bothers you guys because you can't keep your attention longer than fucking 5 minutes. But that didn't bother me. But the show times, like, in conjunction with me working, it just never worked out. And then finally, they brought it to the theater that's closest to me with more applicable show times for me to fucking attend. And, oh, man, it was so worth the wait. One of my favorite films going into Oscar season, no question. It was utterly bizarre, undeniably charming throughout, and it created a world that you've seen before, but have you seen it in Yorgos Lanthimos' eyes or through his eyes? I don't think you have. So, Poor Things is a 2023 film directed by Yorgos Lanthimos and written by Tony McNamara. It stars Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, Willem Dafoe, Ramy, Youssef, Christopher Abbott, and Jerrod Carmichael. And this, I don't know if you guys know, based on a novel. We're pushing, 30 some odd years ago, 32 years ago, based on the 92 novel by Alasdair Gray. The plot follows Bella Baxter, a young woman in Victorian London, which I love. Some of my favorite sequences is just the set and production design in this film, because it looks like Victorian London without ever really stating that it is, and it has that Yorgos lens to view it through, or rather in all reality, Bella Baxter's lens, who's played fantastically by Emma Stone. I think there's one other film on the Best Picture list that I need to see, which is Zone of Interest. That's another one. Everybody in New York and L.A. has seen it, and lowly fucking Toledo is not going to get it until, I believe, the week before the Oscars. So I'm thankful that I do get it, but it makes it tough, kind of, making statements like, this is my favorite film of the year. Well, how can you, out of the Best Picture list, how can you say it's your favorite film of the year if you haven't even fucking seen it, Sean? Well, anyway, so they cannot be understated, the world that Yorgos has created. The production design, the set design, the costume design. Very rare that you can create a world this bizarre and execute near perfectly almost on every front. It almost feels like you create a palette such as this that you see, and something somewhere is not going to fit, whether it be an actor here or there, or it be, maybe even the music, which I found interesting. The music was sorry, I didn't grab any water. The music was actually done by Jerskin Fendricks. This is his first film that he's scored. And I was listening to an interview with Yorgos, and he basically just said, I found his sound so unique, and I was listening to a pop album as I was editing, and I just thought he had to be a part of it, and he did not disappoint. It is so bizarre and yet fits so perfectly with this. And to that point, even the sound design from top to bottom, whether it be, some of the boat sequences that the sound of the boat almost feels like a beating heart. I don't know. You guys go back and tell me if I'm wrong. But very rarely can you create a world like this and sustain the audience's attention. Not that people didn't fucking walk out of this film, because I even read one, and I'm going to react. I hate reaction videos, but I'm telling you what, I get it's fun for me to go down and read reviews of films that I really like, and I specifically look at the critics that hated it. Rex Reed from The Observer, he didn't mince words. I hated it, but reluctantly give it 1 star for whimsical sets and costumes, and there's a minute sprinkle of suspense while you wait for a point of view that never arrives. What are we doing here? Like, this is one of the more original films, and as we've come to expect from Yorgos's work, he doesn't do things like anything that we've ever seen before. I mean, if you've seen some of his previous work, whether it be The Favorite, The Killing of a Sacred Deer, The Lobster, and on and on and on, Dogtooth, like, he creates a world that you've never seen before. So when you go and I feel like shit on something that you don't fully understand, that's the beauty of art these days, or that's the beauty of art to me, at least, is I don't need to understand, this. I mean, there are some pastels used during some of the boat sequences where it teeters on almost a composite matte painting and also CG, and yet it just works perfectly. It really does. And I was actually looking at my Letterboxd score of it. I had given it 4.5, and as I sit here and talk to you now, gang, I don't know why I didn't give it a 5. It's everything that I want. It's like a modern day, well, I shouldn't even say modern day Frankenstein, but it reminds me of Frankenstein, as it does, everybody else. But the way that it's done is just not like Frankenstein whatsoever. Like, what's the best way to put it? Wildly imaginative and exhilaratingly over the top. Poor Things is a bizarre, brilliant tour de force. Tour de force. I should be fucking fired from my own show. Tour de force for director Yorgos Lanthimos and star Emma Stone. And actually, a lot has been written about this. I told you guys that I'm not going to do a lot of films that have enough press, but occasionally a film comes along where I would feel like an idiot if it wasn't an episode on my show, because if it's one of my favorites of last year, why wouldn't I do it? As of right now, between Anatomy of a Fall and this, Poor Things, I just, if you've listened to this show before, I apologize. I'm about to bore you with some redundancy. Every year, I think we're going to have a drop-off of quality in movies. Every year, I think this. And every fucking year, I am just blown away by the content that we do. No, I'm not going to say content. I fucking hate that. By the art that we do get, by the perspectives that we do get. And I think I'm going to stop this year. I'm not going into it, well, this will be the year that we have the fucking lull. I'm not going to do that this time. So, occasionally I'm going to come on and I'm going to talk about these things. I haven't decided if I'm going to do Anatomy of a Fall yet, because while it is just a great film, it doesn't have near the uniqueness that this film does. Friend of the show, Kyle Brule from I Know Movies and You Don't, the movie podcast you should be listening to, not fucking mine, that's for sure. His is far more in depth, far more insightful than mine. I'm just trying to get you fired up. I'm just trying to get you gassed up to go out and see some films. But he is much more of a well-spoken, learned cinephile than I am. But I did want to take the time to read his review on this because it almost felt like that Shane Gillis special. Anybody on this show listen, or anybody in the audience listen to Shane Gillis or a fan of Shane Gillis? I'm sure it's probably 50-50. 50% of you hate him, 50% of you are like, fuck yeah. Anyway, Shane basically is talking about how his dad watches Fox News, and anytime they were at the dinner table and like he'll hear Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson or whatever, he'll be like, the dad will stand up and be, see, I can't say it like they did. But that's what I mean when I talk to you guys. I like that, how he's saying it. That's pretty much similar to how I feel about Poor Things. There are people that are far more educated than I am, writing a much nicer and more presentable critique of the film that I do. But when I read Kyle's review, I Know Movies and You Don't, Kyle Brule, I Know Movies and You Don't, he hit every nail on the head for me. Like, he really did. So let's see if I can do this. I don't like reading from my fucking phone, but here we go. Because, I like to do this off the cusp. Yorgos Lanthimos has made a career out of playing a demented Dr. Frankenstein in his own right. And this is such a... It's a great review, Kyle. Great review. Dr. Frankenstein in his own right, experimenting with genre, etiquette, and presentation by peeling back the layers of humanity with an incisive scalpel that exposes their illogical structures, assumed civilized constructions, and, of course, their emotional barriers. Each of his works has taken a microscope to an issue, whether it's an authoritarian, I'm fired. I should have ate before I did this show. Parenting and Dogtooth, or the extremities of the relationships in The Lobster, and this time in his latest exercise, Poor Things, he takes a broader approach to survey the entirety of development in a fairy tale identity, or the debate between Hobbesian control versus Rosacea. I don't even know what you're saying right here, Kyle. I don't even know what it's, but it sounds Rousseauian, noble savagery. Oh my God, I'm instantly regretting doing a show on this because, like I said, there's people that are far smarter than me that can talk about this show, and you don't need me. Taking on influence and elements of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and perhaps a bit of Jules Verne that introduces us into an alternate history evolved from that foundation. Lanthimos introduces us to Bella Baxter, a fearless and career best for Emma Stone, an experiment of a grown woman with the brain of a child, as she grows, learns, and experiences life in all of its diverse spectrum of offerings, be them fascinating, pleasurable, and even painful. What I also found interesting about creating the two worlds, using two production designers on this film. Two production designers that, and if you know anything about production design, most of the time you're working solo, at least like in term, I'm not talking about putting the sets together or anything like that, but in terms, you're usually the sole production designer on a film. And in this one, Yorgos used two. First and foremost, kudos to Shona, Heath, and James Price for being able to work so well, so effectively together, because I think when Robbie Ryan, the cinematographer, saw the world in which Yorgos had Shona and James create, it just must have been a fucking playground, dude, to be able to utilize some of the colors that he was able to. And Yorgos, on many of his films, likes to use natural light. And for those of you that aren't in the know, much harder to shoot a film using almost entirely natural light than opposed to, obviously, if you've ever seen a film set before, big giant lights upon the actors. And I just got to think Robbie Ryan was like, holy shit. this is going to be fucking awesome. And even to the point of putting the film together, editor Yorgos, here we go, Yorgos Mavropsaridis. He's worked with Lanthimos on every single one of his films, but knowing Lanthimos' eye, mixed with Robbie Ryan's eye, mixed with the environment that Shona, Heath, James Price, what a just goddamn fucking sandbox that these people get to play on, that I think was the most engulfing world in terms of film for films in 2023. I just off the top of my head, and again, I don't prepare. I always fucking just get down and get on a mic, but with very little preparation. But I can't think of another world where I was so engrossed in it. You know, I think of stuff like Blade Runner 2049. Obviously, that came out many, many years ago. But in terms of like, oh my gosh, I feel as uncomfortable and as bizarre as this world is, I'm in it. I'm all in it. Do you have any idea how hard that is to do? So again, you know, compliments to the chef, Yorgos Lanthimos, and Robbie Ryan, and Yorgos Mavropsaridis. Production design by Shona, Heath, and James Price. It's all I can tell you is, for someone like me who's the, you know, most conundrum of a man, I'm so alpha and so beta at the same time. So for me to get feel a part of that world, it's just not an easy feat to do. You know, I'm caught between. This is so funny. I'm going to say this about myself, but I'm caught somewhere between, you know, Fast and the Furious 10 and fucking, you know, the Lobster. You know, it doesn't make any sense, but I can travel to both worlds. And what's so funny is I haven't seen the last 4 Fast and the Furious movies, but I mean, I guess in a nutshell, you could say that I'm that is a fair representation of myself. Okay, so back to Kyle's fucking just amazing review. Through Bella's learned curiosity, insatiable id, and determined autonomous spunk, she confronts the assumed decorum of society and proceeds to break down every social assumption, constructed barrier, and defined box of imprisonment. Whether it stems from father, a prosthetic disguised Joseph Merrick-esque Willem Dafoe, who, like Mark Ruffalo, you know, Emma Stone's performance obviously is fucking amazing in this movie, but I thought Mark Ruffalo was fantastic, so fucking funny. It is a hard thing to do in a piece that is as outlandish as this, to be subtle with your comedy as he is from time. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, he, on a scale of 10, he hits a 12, but there's also like a constant 6, 7 that he hovers around comedically that fucking works. Let me back up a little bit. Like Willem Dafoe, first of all, the makeup effects on Willem Dafoe was fucking fantastic. It looked, I forget what French artist Yorgos had attributed his look, Willem Dafoe's look in the film to, but it's so good. It's so perfect. It is this. How crazy is it to have, and if you just Google what Willem Dafoe looks like in this film, how crazy is it to have that face be relentlessly charming almost throughout? Yeah, I mean, he is a scientist, so he does have some flaws, but that character is just there's no hate. There's no hate watching him, even though again, I'm going to be about as spoiler-free as possible, but again, let's back it up a little bit. Through Bella's learned curiosity, insatiable id, and determined autonomous spunk, she confronts the assumed decorum of society and proceeds to break down every social assumption, constructed barrier, and defined box of imprisonment, whether it stems from father, Willem Dafoe, lover, a better caricature of insecure masculinity in Mark Ruffalo, or husband, allowing us to see the absurdity of such rules in the case of individual expression and experience. Man, Kyle, start writing novels, sir. it might be Lanthimos at his most broad messaging, and I actually felt that too, even before I read Kyle's review on it. My take on it was this felt like Yorgos. Check this fucking line out. Yorgos has created some of the most bizarre films, if not the most bizarre films I've seen in the last 10, 20 years. This world is so fucking nuts, so bizarre, and yet this feels like his most toned down and refined work. Do you have any idea how like crazy that is to say out loud? That this film, and once you see it, you're just going to be like, what is this? This is so weird, and yet it feels like his most relatable film to date. So Kyle is not lying when it says, this is his most broad messaging, and I would almost say most broad look. I mean, don't get me wrong, the set designs are so complex, the costume designs are so complex, but the overall themes and the overall execution feels more so like I don't know what is an example of a normal film these days. I don't know what I would throw out, but like it is his most normal, and yet it's so crazy when you see it. Lanthimos at his most broad messaging and his most repetitive, emphasizing rhythms, mostly due to surveying a tabula rasa of an individual rapidly going through life's general lessons rather than closely examining something specific. But it takes us to the same wickedly comedic, insightful, and analytical heights he's known for, which is rewarding in its own right, man. I can't say it like he can, but that right there, that's what I mean when I say that. It's the more intriguing existential crisis coming-of-age story that surveys a feminine discovery of self to hit theaters this year without the cynical IP insistence to sell something. Lanthimos' most humane work to date, with to err and to fuck is to be human as the mantra, and just delightfully vulgar and funny in the best of ways. I could not agree with that more. It is, you end up, like, I had to sit there for a minute, and it's not like I had to sit there in shock or whatever. Like, not like my chick who went and saw it with me. So the funny story, she had never seen a Yorgos Lanthimos film before, but like, there's only so much time in a day. I'm trying to educate her in film, even though I wonder what is the value of me educating her in film. But that's a story for another day, gang. Because like, twofold. One, do I need to show her all these films so she knows a little bit more about life? Because then at that point, well, you're not letting her explore on her own. The flip side of that is time wasted, and mainly for me. Like, over the last 6 months or so, been watching a lot of movies that I've seen 3, 4, 5, 6, and more times. Like, she had never seen Jaws. Shit, I've seen Jaws probably every year, start to finish. I don't even know how long. It's the movie that I've seen most. That and probably Big Trouble in Little China. I don't know how I was able to shoehorn a Big Trouble in Little China recommendation into a Poor Things podcast, but here we are. But the point is, she had never seen anything like this before, and we're sitting there, and she was just like, well, you're right. That was fucking weird. And it's like, you don't even know. Killing of the Sacred Deer was way weirder. The Lobster, in some degree, way weirder. It's just the world of which Poor Things exist is, you could argue, more odd than the aforementioned. So, but her just, when the credits roll, just looking at me like, she wasn't upset, like, but there was definitely this, what did we just spend 2 hours and 21 minutes watching? And I'm sitting there going, oh my God. Like, I was basking in it, where she was uncomfortable, I think, to a degree. So, and by the time the credits rolled and by the time I had walked out to the parking lot, I was telling her, I'm like, I think that's my favorite film of the year. And this is coming off the heels of Anatomy of a Fall, which I had watched a couple days prior. And I was just like, we need more films like this. Or we go back to the top of the show where I'm like, oh, we need more odd films, blah, blah, blah. They do exist, Sean. You're just not watching them. Well, okay, it could be my fucking fault. I am a fucking idiot. There's no doubt about it. However, as also mentioned at the top of the show, there's only so much time in a fucking day. There's only so much time for me to work for money. Take a vacation every now and then, read some books every now and then, watch some movies every now and then. There's only so much time in a day, but I still, to this very moment, without having seen, actually I haven't seen 2 films on the Best Picture list this year. I haven't seen Zone of Interest or American Fiction yet, but I've seen everything else, and Poor Things is the front runner. Just because I've never seen anything like it before, I thought Emma Stone continues to prove why she is one of the best actresses in Hollywood. Mark Ruffalo is more than, not that anybody didn't know this prior, but Mark Ruffalo is more than just the Incredible Hulk, Not that I think half the people listen to this show know that, but the other half, they might not know that Mark Ruffalo's done some fucking awesome work that exists outside of the fucking Marvel universe. So please go see this film. Like, it has to be seen to be believed. Don't wait for the streaming. If you're in the Toledo area, go out. It's at 2 of the 3 theaters now. Go see it, support it, because we need more films like this. Marvel's got their money. Fast and the Furious has got their money. Let's put more money into unique ideas and visuals like Poor Things executes almost perfectly. And even as I'm sitting here right now, like I said, I put it on 4.5 on Letterboxd, but I don't know what's keeping it from a 5 other than nothing's perfect to me. But yet, if you go to some of my ratings, whether it be on IMDb or Letterboxd, there's a couple 5s in there. I think Godfather was 5 stars. I think Shaun of the Dead was 5 stars. That should show you right there I'm an idiot. Godfather is 5 stars. Shaun of the Dead, also 5 stars. Poor Things, 4.5 stars. Yeah, I know. It doesn't make much sense. Try living like me, gang. If you could be in my dome for one day, you would tap out so fucking fast you don't even know. Anyway, Poor Things out right now. I think it's coming to stream on Hulu relatively shortly here. But no, go out in the theater. See it in the theater. Take some friends. Poor Things, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, written by Tony McNamara, and again, that was from the 1992 novel of Alasdair Gray, starring Emma Stone, Willem Dafoe, Mark Ruffalo, Jerrod Carmichael, Christopher Abbott. Oh man, just even Miss Prim, who's just not a prominent character at all. Even she's good. Everything about this movie is fantastic. The world in which it creates, we don't get it very often, and as long as Yorgos keeps making films, I'm gonna keep watching. That's all there is to it, because he's that fucking good. So, Ella Cinema, Poor Things, in theaters now, no excuse. I'm going to keep coming out with dumb shows. Got some interviews around the bend that you guys should be entertained by. But until then, Ella Cinema, here we gone.